The Ultra League is one of the more difficult leagues within the Go Battle League, and a lot of trainers just simply do not know what Pokemon to bring to this league. But I'm going to be talking about the top 5 Pokemon that excel the most in the Ultra League. Any of these Pokemon can dominate the Ultra League just by itself, but you really want to make sure you bring the right counters, you bring the right team behind it. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Among all of the 3 leagues in the Go Battle League, the Ultra League is actually my personal favorite. It does have a lot of problems in terms of diversity and versatility, but overall I do enjoy it the most because of how challenging it truly is. Compared to the Great League as well as the Master League, you typically will only find the same Pokemon within the Ultra League. It does require a lot of strategy, it does require a lot of Stardust, but if you have the right team, you can dominate the Ultra League with no problem. In every Go Battle League season, a majority of my battles happen in the Ultra League, and I compiled the 5 best Pokemon that I think dominate the Ultra League, whether it's Pokemon that I've personally used in order to dominate my opponents, or Pokemon that my opponents have used to dominate me. These Pokemon are seriously the most effective, and they will allow you to hit the higher ranks so long as you have a good one of each of these, you have the right movesets, and overall you just know how to use them. But in any case, let's jump right into it. Coming in at number 5, we have Alolan Muk. Now, Alolan Muk is a bit of a dark horse. Not a lot of players tend to use him, but I honestly think it is one of the best Pokemon to use in the Ultra League. It is a really strong opener, or a Pokemon you can have in the back pocket to counter Giratinas. It is extremely versatile, it is extremely strong, and it does counter a lot of the Pokemon that you will come across. And the one really nice thing about Alolan Muk is that it does dish out a ton of damage in the Ultra League. That 2500 CP limit does benefit Alolan Muk quite well. If you're going up against a lot of strong openers or Pokemon that counter some of your other strong Pokemon, you can use Alolan Muk to clean them out. Now when it comes to Alolan Muk, I highly suggest you go with Snarl and Dark Pulse along with Gunk Shot. These are your best moves that you could use in the Ultra League, but if you want to dish out a lot more poison damage up against Pokemon like Venusaur and Togekiss, I could go with Sludge Wave as well. I've worked with both, and personally I find Gunk Shot to be just a little bit more useful, especially because I use Alolan Muk as an opener. You can use Gunk Shot to bait out some shields and then use Dark Pulse to DPS them down. That has been my strategy with Alolan Muk, but it all depends on what you are aiming for with this Pokemon. Now coming in at number 4, I have Charizard. Now the reason why I have Charizard is because of his versatility against some of the top Pokemon in the Ultra League. Charizard may be squishy compared to a lot of other Pokemon, and it does get hard countered by Pokemon like Swampert, but Charizard will dish out a lot of damage. It does have a really powerful moveset in Fire Spin and Blast Burn, and then of course you can also use Dragon Claw to deal with some of the top Pokemon. You can use Charizard as your opener, it dishes out a lot of damage. You could use Dragon Claw to bait out shields, and Blast Burn deals a ton of damage, so if they decide not to shield it, well, you're going to give yourself an advantage because of the amount of damage that it can deal. The other nice thing about Charizard is that it has very few counters in the Ultra League. You really will only have to worry about Swampert and Gyarados, although those Pokemon can be countered by others as well. Typically, you will not find players opening up with a Swampert or a Gyarados, so your Charizard will be safe if you use it as an opener. Now speaking of Swampert, that is going to be our number 3 on this list. Swampert is essentially an Ultra League staple. It is a really powerful ground type and water type Pokemon. If you're going up against a lot of the different Pokemon in the Ultra League, Swampert is going to be essential, mainly because of its ground type attacks. You will be able to one-shot or two-shot a lot of the Pokemon that are commonly in the Ultra League, but the one thing with Swampert is that it is the most effective Pokemon to use if you've already baited out their shields. The ideal scenario is that you burn through both of their shields, or early on, and then when they bring out a strong steel type, you use Swampert to clean house. You could also use Swampert against some of the other common Pokemon that you would see, like Alolan Muk. It is a very versatile Pokemon that can dish out a ton of damage. And of course, if anyone has experience going up against Swampert, you would know that Hydro Cannon is one of the peskier moves in the Ultra League. Not only can it bait out shields, but it can also dish out a lot of damage before you bring out your heavy hitters. And now that we're getting into those heavy hitters, let's go over the top 2 Pokemon on this list. And at number 2, we have Registeel. Now the really nice thing about Registeel is that even at level 40, it will be under the 2500 CP limit, which means if you max out your absolute best IV Registeel, it's going to be that much more powerful in the Ultra League. And the key thing with Registeel is its typing. The steel typing is always going to be really strong in the Ultra League, but Registeel does get hard countered by Pokemon like Charizard, so you will want to watch out for those. But when it comes to a lot of other Pokemon, you could dish out a lot of damage with Focus Blast and Flash Cannon. Both of these moves can deal a ton of damage, and your opponent will be essentially forced to use their shields unless they are using a hard counter. If you do not have a good Registeel, I highly suggest you prioritize your trades in order to get a good one. It's going to bring you really far in the Ultra League. Considering that a lot of trainers in the Ultra League use a lot of different budget Pokemon like Togekiss, you're going to use Registeel to completely dominate these Pokemon. Again, it has very few counters, it could dish out a lot of damage, it's probably one of the best that you will use in the Ultra League. But of course, Registeel is IV dependent, considering that it maxes out under 2500 CP, so if you do not have a Registeel that's at least 89% IVs, well, it's probably not worth bringing compared to all of the other Pokemon on this list. But if you do have a really good Registeel, it's definitely worth bringing into the Ultra League and investing your Stardust and rare candies. And with all of that said, let's get into our top Pokemon. It should be no surprise to anyone. It is going to be Giratina Altered Form. Now this Pokemon is probably the most commonly used Pokemon in the Ultra League, and for good reason. Not only is it bulky with a lot of defense, it can actually dish out quite a lot of damage as well. Its most ideal moveset is Shadow Claw with Dragon Claw and Ancient Power. This gives him a lot of versatility against a lot of Pokemon, and you could dish out a lot of damage and bait out a lot of shields against Pokemon that do not resist any of these damage types. If you are lucky, you can get a lot of procs with Ancient Power and boost up your Pokemon even more. And because of this reason, a lot of people tend to open with Giratina Altered Form, and I tend to agree with that. Having Giratina as your opener and stacking up as many Ancient Powers as possible could essentially give you the win. But you have to watch out for a lot of its hard counters. A lot of the Pokemon that I listed up until now do counter Giratina Altered Form pretty hard, specifically with Registeel and Alolan Muk. Both of these Pokemon can deal with a Giratina Altered Form pretty easily, even if you have both shields, so you will want to watch out for those. If you do come across a counter for Giratina Altered Form, it's pretty safe to switch it out. But those are essentially the two only counters you will have problems with. Otherwise, Giratina Altered Form will take you really far in the Ultra League. Now before I close out this video, here are a couple of example teams that you could use with all 5 of these Pokemon. First and foremost, you could use Registeel, Giratina Altered Form, and Swampert. All 3 of these Pokemon complement each other really well, and if you go up against a Pokemon that counters any of your hard hitters, well, you could switch it out for any of your counters as well. You really want to utilize every single move at your arsenal and defeat your Pokemon down with a lot of smart switches. Remember, you can get countered with your switches, so you want to be careful what you go up against. Another great combination is Giratina Altered Form, Alolan Muk, and Swampert. These Pokemon can be versatile, and this is one of the more DPS heavy builds that you can use. Giratina Altered Form is a great anchor, and like I said, you could use it as your strongest opener, but having Alolan Muk and Swampert behind it, you have a bunch of Pokemon that you could use to counter some of the more common Pokemon that you will go up against. The Ultra League is one of my favorite leagues in the Go Battle League, and going up against these Pokemon does require a lot of experience, so make sure you practice with these Pokemon and you will go really far. But that's going to be it for this top 5 list. I would love to know your thoughts down below. What Pokemon are you using in the Ultra League? There's definitely Pokemon that should have been on this list that didn't get a mention, so definitely sound off down below. I would love to know your top 5 Ultra League Pokemon. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video, everyone. I am Count Jinsula, and as always, be safe, have fun, and I'll catch you all later.